Okay, hold off talking. Pat, you are live.
Welcome everybody. I am Pat, your underwater biologist today. We have Rian on camera and surface biologist is Lauren. I'm excited to have you all with me on this dive. Today I am on the right hand side of Casuarina Point, here on the western side of Grand Cayman. Now I am at 7 meters depth, so about 25 feet. Now I am near the Devil's Grotto, but we are a bit on the shallower side. We haven't actually looked around here very much. So I'm going to be looking out for some little blennies today. Now blennies are hilarious little fish. They can move their eyes independently, so they look very, very funny, and they hide away in little holes and cracks. So I'll be closely looking out for one of those, and if an octopus decides to show its face in that time, I wouldn't be mad at that either. So, hello everyone, welcome to the dive, and I'm going to pass it up to Lauren now.
Thanks for that, Pat. And I do believe you're getting revenge on me for yesterday by looking at all these blennies, but I will do my best. So hi everyone, we do have a beautiful French angelfish ahead. So just before we go on to that, please do remember to send in all your questions, comments, requests. But if you are using Twitter, make sure you use that hashtag diveLIVE, or you can just ask us in YouTube and Facebook. So Pat, your favorite fish, over to you.
Yes, we do have ourselves a French angelfish. Now these are, I would say, the most commonly seen angelfish here at the reef of Casuarina Point. So they are called angelfish because if you were to turn them on their heads, then they would look just like an angel that you would have hanging off your Christmas tree. They are easily identifiable fish. They have really disc-shaped bodies and they're in a really unique straight shape. They've got these elongated dorsal and ventral fins that run to the tip of its tail. Now we can tell this one is a French angelfish because of its yellow. Each of its scales actually has a edging of yellow, and that's what gives it that kind of yellow cast all over it.
And yes, that was Derek, our newest member of diveLIVE, the rooster. He always likes to say hi to everyone, so it wasn't the angelfish, it was Derek. So back to the angelfish, you can see that big mouth, and that's because it does consume a huge variety of prey, and it's notorious for munching on all the sponges. Now, sponges are very indigestible food source, so it does really well to eat them, and about 90% of its diet is made up from the sponges. So we can see its beautiful yellow eyeshadow, looking very glamorous. And actually, if you look just behind the mouth, you can see the gill spine that we have always referred to. We've never really been able to see that so far, but there is a sharp spine there that's very, very small, and this is one of the key identifying features of angelfish.
Yeah, and the function of that spine is not really clear. I haven't been able to find anything solid about it, but my guess is that it helps to protect parasites, or the gills from parasites, by increasing the surface area of coverage over the gills whilst not actually covering the flow of water coming out.
Oh, I didn't know that, Pat. That's a good theory.
Yeah, well, it's a bit hard to really speculate as to what else it could be. Oh, we're getting some nice feeding action now. So it looks like it is feeding on some algae at the moment.
Oh, it's feeling vegetarian today. Can you give us a size estimate and then we'll sort of know what stage in its life it is at?
So, I would say about 30 centimetres long, so 12 inches.
Oh, so it's just reached sexual maturity then. French angelfish become sexually mature at 25 centimetres, which is probably around 10 inches. But they can go right up to 61 centimetres, so that's about 25 inches, so they do get much larger.
Now, this one seems to be hanging out by itself. I can't see any other French angelfish in the area. Now, it's usually that you'll see these in pairs, so they are mating pairs. And they do tend to stay with this partner for quite some time, and they will scour the reefs in search of food. Now, sometimes they do get separated, and that might be the case with this one here. And if they are reunited, then they will actually do a dance with one another, which I think is pretty sweet.
Very cute. They're the romantic ones of the reef. So both butterfly fish and angelfish form monogamous pairs, and it is thought that they do stay together for life. However, recent studies showed that the angelfish males are slightly naughty and they do participate in group sex. So they're not as monogamous as you think, but they do stay with their mated female for life. So Linda was asking, what are the blue and yellow tiny fish? I'm just having a look this now. There is a blue chromis on the screen. Maybe you were referring to the bicolored damsel.
What colour fish, sorry?
Linda mentioned the blue and yellow ones. Oh, it could be these ones. Yeah, well done, Rian. These are the fairy basslets, our favourite. Half yellow, half purple, I think. So hopefully that was the fish you were referring to.
Yes, and these are also commonly known as royal grammars, I believe, as well.
Yes, in different parts of the world they do have a different name, but here we call them the fairy basslets, which I think is just a lovely name. They regularly hang upside down, so whenever we see them it's a little bit confusing because normally they are upside down. So Pat, Proud Cat Mama is asking, what are the predators of the French angelfish?
Ooh, angelfish predators. Well, in their juvenile stages, they're obviously a lot more vulnerable to attack. So they prey on quite a lot of larger predators, such as groupers and sharks, although we don't really get the predatory sharks here on the reefs in at least this area of Grand Cayman.
Yes, and to avoid predators when they're younger, they are actually born and become straight away cleaner fish. So they are the ones that will hang above the cleaning stations and remove ectoparasites from other fish. And this will include jacks, snappers, even moray eels. So they do this with a fluttering motion, and this advertises themselves as cleaners. And when they're actually cleaning the client, they will touch them with their pelvic fins. And this is also just to ensure that these big fish know that they're cleaners. So it's quite a great technique to avoid being eaten. And the juveniles also look completely different from the adults. So they're obviously much smaller, but they're completely black with about 5 bright yellow bars running down the body. They don't look anything like this adult we're seeing right now.
Alright, well, let's move over this way. So this area, as I said, we haven't really explored very much. So this is all very new and exciting to me. So there's a lot of bombings here. They're kind of spread out between sandy patches. So we'll just move from bit to bit, have a look around and see what's there.
Absolutely. I would like to see a scribbled filefish if you see one, and we do have a request from Sophie for a nurse shark. So that's a pretty big request, but let's see what we can do.
Yeah. The nurse sharks have been eluding us for quite some time now. We never really get a full good moment with them. They're always on the move.
So Love Dogs is asking about the juvenile angelfish, and that's a really good question because we have seen a lot recently at another dive site, but we rarely see them here at Casuarina Point. They do tend to hang around the shallows, so it might be possible when we do a shallow dive that we can point out one of these juveniles for you. It would be great to have that comparison so you can see what we're referring to. Many of the reef fish here, all over the world actually, have different colour phases, and it's really confusing for us, but we can call this polychromatic, so they have different colour phases throughout their life. It is a good way to sex them and a good way to age them though. We're able to use the colour phase that they are in to say sometimes whether it's a boy or girl, and sometimes whether it's an adult, intermediate or juvenile.
Yeah, the whole concept of colour change and changing even morphology as you get older, and well, even in the case of hermaphrodites changing sex, it's a really fascinating thing to study, and we don't really get it much here on land, especially with humans. We don't get it at all, so it's completely a foreign idea, but I mean, yeah, it really does get you thinking. Oh, what's this?
Oh, what have you spotted? Oh, I can see that too. Is it the white tubules?
It was over this side, but it has swam away into the crack. What were you looking at?
Rian had some white tubules, which I believe belong to a worm, and I thought that's what you might have been referring to. We can take another look. It was just on the other side of where you were looking, if you like. Yes, now we can see them. So right ahead there's long white tubules sticking out the rock. Can you see them, Pat? Pat, are you able to see them?
I'm just looking. Yeah. So what was it that you said they were, sorry?
I believe it's spaghetti worms.
Oh, yeah, I see, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I thought you were referring to, sorry.
Yeah, no, so that's pretty cool though. So these were spaghetti worms. So they are actually all tentacles of the one worm, and they spread these out over very long distances. Now, the rest of the worm stays away in a tube, which makes up the main body, and it kind of spreads out these tentacles throughout the rocks for feeding.
Yes, so they're also polychaetes, segmented worms, in the same sort of large grouping as the Christmas tree worms that we show you. And these white things that we can see are actually feeding tentacles. So they're very long and they're using this to capture food. So the body is encased inside, so again, the same as the feather dusters and the Christmas tree worms, the body is not visible to us. But they can retract these tentacles and bring them back inside. So obviously right now they're extended, so they're obviously looking for food. And the same as the other worms, the tentacles do have hair-like structures called cilia. And they're covered in mucus, and this is how they actually capture the food. I think this is the first sighting of this on diveLIVE, Pat.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think this is actually the first one I've ever seen here as well, so good to have something different, completely different really. I mean, we do get other polychaete worms, the Christmas tree worms and the feather duster worms, but this one is, I suppose, really just highlights the diversity of polychaetes. They come in so many different shapes and sizes and forms. It's really baffling.
Yes, it looks quite messy there, seeing all of those tentacles. And Derek is on fire this morning. He is calling out. Many of you can hear him, so that's why I'm just acknowledging it. He needs his own Facebook page, according to Bethy, and that is a great idea. We will share a photo of him with you. He's adorable, but very naughty.
Well, let's come over here. There's a really, really nice, tall bommy here. Even just looking at the topography of this is really cool. So I'm going to go over and explore it a bit, but we could just get some nice shots of it. It rises up, I would say about, this would be about 6-7 meters high, so about 20-25 feet. And it has just got an amazing structure.
Well, Josh is requesting to see a stoplight parrotfish, and I do see one up ahead, so we can definitely share one of those with you, Josh.
What was that request, sorry?
A stoplight parrotfish.
Ah, yep. Sure. Well, we have a couple of females right here, actually.
Oh yeah, we got the male now.
Oh yes. So that is a male, which is the blue colour form, and it is actually swimming in the direction of some females right now, although the females have just swum off. But so Rian, these fish just down here, the brown one, the brown and red one feeding. So this is a female. Are you seeing it?
Yes, we're getting a great view of the female. So within a few seconds there, we saw the male version of the stoplight parrotfish and the female. And you can see how completely different they are. They're really not similar. So most people may misidentify them as two separate species. So I'm sure Pat can explain to you exactly how it works in the world of parrotfish. So male parrotfish is the terminal phase, which means that is the final phase of a parrotfish life. So they are hermaphrodites, and they're sequential hermaphrodites, which means they do start off their life as female, and they will change into a sort of non-sexually available intermediate male, and then eventually they will finish their life cycle as a terminal phase male. And this is probably because being a boy absolutely rocks. They're able to sort of spread their seed wide and mate with many females. So in terms of genetics, it's a bigger advantage to be a boy at the end of the life cycle. So Pat, do you fancy sharing with us a little bit of information on harems?
Yeah, so a harem is kind of a territory that is controlled by a male parrotfish, or wrasse as well. And in this harem, it will be the male, and then a group of females. Generally, there's about 7 to 15. Now, this male will provide protection and food for these females, and in return, he gets to mate with them at his pleasure. So, he essentially just has a group of females in a territory that is his and he defends. Now, if for some reason this male is killed or driven away or is not controlling the harem for whatever reason, then the strongest, most dominant female will start to metamorphosize, and this will become the dominant male, and then the cycle continues.
Yes, and there's many advantages and disadvantages of life in a harem. Obviously, the male can mate with the females at pleasure, like Pat said, but he also is responsible for them. He has to keep them safe and provide food. So it's a lot of work to maintain a harem.
Look at the size of this tarpon. This is definitely the biggest one I've ever seen. Just right here. This tarpon would easily be over 2 meters. This is about 6 to 8 foot.
Yeah, we got a glimpse of that fish there. And right now we've got some cleaning action in front. That's brilliant.
That is an amazing size. I can't believe how big this tarpon is.
And he's actually on the move, which is quite unusual, isn't it, Pat?
Yeah, well, it is the morning, so perhaps he has been out hunting all night. They are nocturnal hunters, and so perhaps he is moving back to a more sheltered and quiet location to rest for the day.
Yeah, that's right. He's probably on the way to the grotto. That seems to be where all the tarpon hang out during the day.
Yes, well, we are near the Devil's Grotto.
So you've reached a sandy patch. I wonder what we can find down here.
Yeah, I'm going to stay a bit low to the ground here and just really focus on the little detail bits. See if I can find something extraordinary.
Well, I have the fish ID book ready for you when you spot those blennies. Blennies are one of the most difficult family to identify, I find. They're very small, they're constantly moving, and they all look similar.
So Lauren and I, at the moment, I suppose playing a bit of a game where every dive we want to identify one new species. So let's try it with this jawfish just here.
Oh dear, okay, I'm on it. Maybe if you can describe it, I will get that ID book open.
So as we can see, this jawfish is hanging out in a burrow. So this is his home, and they don't tend to move too far from it. So they are called jawfish because their jaw really can protrude quite fast and open up this big mouth. And what is really interesting about this mouth is that when the female is pregnant, she will actually hold her eggs in her mouth as defense for them. So they will be aerated and held in the mouth.
Okay, that is wonderful information, but I do believe this is a dartfish.
A dartfish?
Yes, which is part of the blenny family.
I see. Oh, well, I found my blenny at least.
Yeah, so you can see that it's hovering there. It tends to just hover right above its burrow so that it can retract into the burrow at any point. So has it got a yellowish head, Pat?
Yes, it does. It's got a yellow tinge to its head for sure.
So I do believe this is the hovering dartfish, which would be another new species to our ever-growing list. But I'm still checking, so bear with me.
Well, please disregard the information I gave you when I thought that this was a jawfish. But now that I am close to it, I can see that it does not have the jaws or the mouth of a jawfish. So it is a different species, but it is a blenny.
Well, it's very similar to the yellowhead jawfish. It really could be one of those as well. Let's see if we can get closer. It keeps on going in and out of focus, but once Rianne's able to get focus on it, I'll try and confirm. Oh, we're in focus now.
You can see it's just constantly hovering above its burrow, looking out. Well, I suppose both food and the big predators as well.
So Pat, I think you were right. Now that we're in focus and we're up close, I think it is a jawfish. You were correct.
Okay.
So it has a very similar body shape to the hovering blenny.
Yeah. Well, I do notice that it isn't moving its eyes independently. They're moving together.
Oh.
That could perhaps mean that it is
Yes, so Pat was correct. We'll settle on a yellowhead jawfish. It's still a new one for our list. And it's really tricky with these small, slender fish. They keep moving. If only we could get them to stay still, but I do think that's what it is.
Now, Rianne, I'm going to put your cameraman work to the test. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see this, but in this burrow here, it looks like there is a mantis shrimp hiding inside of it. So you're going to have to get right on top of it.
A mantis shrimp?
It looks like it. There is definitely a crustacean hiding away in this burrow here. And from what I can see, it looks like a mantis shrimp.
Oh, that would be an awesome find if it was. So sometimes mantis shrimps retreat, but they will pop back out. So even if we just hover above the sand for a little while, it might come back and say hello. We haven't got anything yet. But once it realizes we're not a threat, it probably will come back out.
Can you see anything in there?
Is it in the sort of deep burrow?
Yeah, it is.
No, we're not able to see anything yet, but give it time, it might pop back out.
Okay, yeah, I can see it in the burrow, but it is a few centimeters deep.
Well, if it is a mantis shrimp, that would be an awesome find and well worth waiting around for. Do you think it'll come back out, Pat?
Sorry?
Do you think it'll come back out?
Maybe. It didn't actually, it was never actually out of its burrow. It just came to the very top of it. So
our mama Tracy did confirm, Pat, that it's a yellowhead jawfish.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for that, Tracy.
We can never survive without you, so big shout out to Tracy. Thank you for all your help. It's obviously feeling a bit shy today. It would be such a great find though.
Okay, so I don't think that it's gonna come out.
Oh yeah, I got a glimpse of it there. When the light hits it a different way, you can see there's a little animal hiding in there. No, we've lost it again. There's definitely something, Pat. I totally see it, but I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is a shame. It would have been great to have seen a mantis shrimp. But they are primarily nocturnal also, so seeing one during the day coming out of its burrow is not as likely.
That's a shame, but never mind, we tried, and you're still above the sand, so we have a chance of seeing another one. The sandy areas may look completely empty, but they are not. There's a huge plethora of fish just hiding out there. Oh, another harlequin bass. Rian, you're good. Can you see that, Pat?
Yes, I do. So, I'm very proud of you for getting the name this time. That was one of our unknown species that we had a few days ago.
Yeah, so Zoom is pulling all sorts of tricks on us.
Oh, there seems to be a bit of a feeding frenzy going on over here. I'm sure what's there, but there is about 4 or 5 different species, all just going nuts feeding.
Let's take a look.
So it must be a very dense algal patch, because there is wrasse.
Yeah, predominantly wrasse and parrotfish, isn't it? And a squirrel fish. Sophie, that one's for you. Yeah, they're really feeding heavily.
Yeah.
And it looks quite painful, I think, the way they just protrude forward and take big lumps out of the algae. But they do have such a strong beak that is designed exactly for that. Oh yeah, and even, is that a goatfish? So Pat is right, there's a huge array of different fish types here. And a blue tang.
I wonder what's attracted them to feed right here all at the same time. My assumption is because there is some goat-like fish in amongst them, is that there is quite a few crustaceans in amongst the algae here.
Yeah, that is a beautiful close-up of the yellow goatfish.
Oh, wow.
And we can see its barbels.
Yes. So these barbels are where they get their name goatfish from, because they look kind of like a goat's beard. Now, they are important sensory organs, and they generally use them to sift through sand, or in this guy's case, look through the algae to find small prey items to eat. So they can move them kind of like we would move our fingers in a way, and really search through the sand. So you can, when they're actively feeding, you can actually see this. They move them about independently. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so when it's swimming like this, you don't see the barbels, so you don't realize that it actually has them, or it's a goatfish. They're very smart reef fish. They're really able to maximize the potential that they have to find food. You're doing a good job of spotting all these fish, Pat. Let's try and spot some more.
Yeah, definitely. So I have been a bit quieter today, and I do apologise for that, but that's because I'm really keeping my concentration on just looking out for small and unusual things.
Well, you've done a good job so far. You tricked me out with the jawfish. Oh, squid, squid, squid! Yay, we have a huge school, or show, should I say, of squid ahead.
Oh, wow.
Caribbean reef squid.
Oh, awesome. What a sighting. And that black durgan must be a bit confused and think it's a squid as well.
It always thinks it's something else, doesn't it?
Wow, so this is nice. There's probably one, two, three. There's be just under 20 squid right here. It's almost like they're doing a coordinated dance right now.
And they probably are. Most likely the mating dance.
Yeah, so the fact that they are shallow makes us think that they're probably here for mating.
Yes, the depth that you find these. Oh, look at that straight line. There must be how many there? Well, I can see at least 15.
Yeah, yep. And they are changing colours quite rapidly as well. It's really, I love seeing this. I love seeing squid all the time. They're so psychedelic. It is like watching something that some artist has created when they change their colours and the way they dance.
Now, Pat, I think you should give everyone your analogy, which is my favourite. What do you call these reef squid?
Yes, you do love this one, Lauren. So, squid are the rock stars of the ocean. And this is for a few reasons. Firstly, is that they live fast and die young. They live only to, generally, cephalopods will only live to about a year old. So they live fast, they die young. The males will also mate with several females throughout his lifetime, and they also leave behind a lot of unfathered offspring. So that is why squid are the rock stars of the ocean.
Oh, I love that, and I can't take credit for it. It's Pat's great analogy, but it does give a quite good insight into their life. So it's not just for fun. They do actually live fast and die young. They don't have long lifespans, and they are sexually mature at 6 months old, which is very young to be sexually mature. And they are semiparous, which is the same as octopus, and all this means is that the females die once laying the eggs, and they die mostly by starvation. They give everything to maintaining their eggs, and they don't eat. They just give up, and mostly it's starvation that kills them. Or it could be that they get incredibly weak because they're not eaten, that they could be snatched up by a predator.
Now, I have completely lost visuals on them. It's like they've just disappeared. Can we still see them? They're gone? Okay, they have vanished, it would seem. Now, the thin air, or thin water.
Well, while you're looking for them, it's definitely worth looking for them. Can we get an air check?
Yes. So, I have exactly 100 bar left. Still a bit of diving left to do. We have been staying pretty shallow, which means I'm not using my air as fast as usual.
Yeah, proud cat mama is an awesome dive buddy. We're always glad to have you along with us. Well, I hope we can find these squid. They do tend to hang around the same area in the shallows. It would be great to get eyes on them as well.
It does make it harder when they are able to change colour. They can quite often appear transparent at times because they blend in so well with the water. Oh, it looks like we have a parrotfish bite.
A parrotfish bite?
Yes, no, they are not. They were aggressively attack. Well, it looks like they were kissing. But there was two parrotfish attacking one another.
Yeah, they're very territorial, and it's very common to see the red band species doing this territorial attack on one another. Oh, a barjack.
Swims on through. These barjacks are very clever in that they know which fish are the ones that are good at finding food, and when they've found a fish that's good at finding food, they tend to stick around them and steal just about anything that the fish might uncover or find.
Yeah, I always call them the naughty ones. They always know where they're gonna find food. And when they're swimming like they are now, they tend to be quite a pale silvery colour. But when they go near the bottom and they're feeding a little bit deeper, say with the stingrays for example, they can darken their colour and they do look black. We're getting really good sighting of this barjack, and you can see how fast it's moving and how fleeting it is. It's looking for its next victim, I think.
Yeah, they're always on the move. And we can see that they have a very forked tail, so that fork in the tail runs very deep. And this really gives them an advantage in terms of speed, because it increases the surface area that is in contact with the water, so it increases the amount of power they have. But because of this so deeply forked, it also reduces the drag, so it will efficiently maximise their speed.
And just to add to what Pat said, you can look at the body design and the shape of a fish, and it will tell you a little bit about what kind of life it leads. So, as Pat mentioned, the bigger predators, those a little bit higher up the food chain, will be thin and streamlined with a forked tail. Now, this is for a reason. It is, for speed in order to catch their prey. But the other types of fish won't necessarily be designed like that. So this is why we do look at body shape, because it will tell us a little bit about the life of the fish in question.
Alright, so let's head off this sandy patch and hit the big coral bommies here. So this is quite a big collection of smaller little bits of reef that kind of build up into this. It's almost like a mountain or a big hill.
Sure, well, I think you'll find this one funny. The Jersey lady said the barjacks are like the hyenas of the reef. I think you could be right.
Yeah, that's a very good comparison.
So you can see Pat is doing a shallower dive today, which means his air will last longer. The colour is much more beautiful up here because we've got a lot of sunlight. And both Pat and Rianne are just hovering above different coral bombings. Now, coral bombings, or bommy as the Australians say, are sort of an unofficial word for just an outcrop of coral. And you really never know what you're going to see there. The slower you go, the more you can see sort of hiding in all these cracks in between the corals. Oh, tarpon.
Yeah, so we've got a big school of them here.
And they look pretty big. Any size estimates, Pat?
Yeah, whoa. So the one closest right now is about 1.5 meters long, so about 5 feet.
And curiously so, tarpons...
Not fully grown, but I think the one we saw earlier was, though. That one was huge. So tarpons can reach up to 2.5 meters long.
Yeah, they get really big, and they are actually the distant cousins of eels. Now, you wouldn't think so. They are an ancient lineage of fish, and you can see they do look a bit prehistoric looking compared to the other fish we see, but they are very closely related to eels. And actually, the larvae of a tarpon will be like a very small eel, a very flat ribbon, only a couple of inches long. So, Pat, we have a question from Proud Cat Mama. Do tarpons have teeth?
Do they have teeth? No, they do not. Oh, actually, now that I'm thinking, I'm not actually sure on that one. I don't believe they do, but do you know, Lauren?
I'm pretty sure they do, but they use their powerful jaws more. They rely on them, and they do have teeth to crush the fish.
Yes. They have a very upturned mouth, and this is for two functions. Firstly, so they can gulp prey, but secondly, so they can gulp air. So one really interesting fact about tarpon is that they can actually use their swim bladder as a kind of a pseudo lung, or a fake lung almost. So they can take air into it and you actually use that air in their respiration.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know of any other fish that does it. And what Pat means when he says a swim bladder is an organ that most fish have to control their buoyancy. So you can see that both Pat and I wear these cumbersome BCDs, buoyancy control devices, and that's like a fish's internal BCD, and it's called a swim bladder. So tarpons use their swim bladder as like a pseudo respiratory organ, and that's how they can breathe air. Pat, can I just interrupt you? Sorry, are you able to give that connector in the cable a little twist? And maybe check all the connections on the backpack. So sorry everyone, we are aware there's a audio issue, we're checking on it.
Is that any better?
Not really, maybe another twist? Jared's just having a look at everything now, please bear with us. So Pat, just to let you know, no one will be able to hear you. So I will just give some information. Please check in and let us know how much air you have and when to end the dive, okay? Can you let us know you got that message? Alrighty. So just point some things out to us. So just to answer the question, it's not a fin bladder that we were talking about, it's a swim bladder, S-W-I-M. So that's what we were referring to when we were talking about the tarpons. And we do have an anemone in front of us. It looks quite a big one. It looks like it could be the giant anemone. And look, oh, a little shrimp. Oh, okay, great. So inside the anemone right now, we have tiny little shrimps called the squat anemone shrimps. Now they're a little bit out of focus, but Rianne will get there. And look how magnificent they are. Again, another first for diveLIVE. So they're very small shrimps, and you can see they curve their body up at the back. And they're actually called squat anemone shrimps because they do a funny little dance. Now, I can only describe it. It's almost like twerking. For those of you who haven't heard of twerking, they're just shaking their booties up and down. And that's where they get the name, the squat shrimp, from. So we're completely out of focus here, Rianne. Maybe if we get into focus again. There we go. So you can see it right inside the anemone, in between the tentacles. So what you're looking at are the tentacles of a sea anemone. And there's little shrimps that live inside. Oh, and it just twerked. So they're actually really orange in colour, but we're not able to quite pick out the orange, but we can see those glorious white spots. And the Jersey lady said we're getting better at identifying. Thank you. We're not bad at all. Each of us have our unique areas where we're better than others. Now, shrimps is definitely Simone's area, so she would be really happy right now. So to give you some background on anemones, they are closely related to jellyfish. They're in the same family. And these tentacles actually contain stinging cells. So if we were to touch them, we would definitely feel a sting. And remember, we are much larger than the size of most reef fish. So we would definitely feel it. So you can imagine how it would affect a very small reef fish. It could even kill them. It could be fatal for the smaller ones. So the fact that these little shrimps live inside the anemone is quite incredible. And it is another example of symbiosis on the reef. These shrimps have sort of acclimatized themselves, if you like, to the sting. And now they're fully protected and able to live amongst the anemone. Now you can think that's probably really beneficial for the shrimp because they've got the ultimate protection. Being nestled inside an anemone like this means that probably not many other fish are able to get in and eat up the shrimp. So it's really protected inside here. Now, symbiosis with anemones are actually more common than you think, and probably the most famous one is the Nemo, the clownfish that do live inside anemones. Now, we don't have clownfish here. They are present in the Indo-Pacific region of the world, but they do show symbiosis. Now, theirs is a little bit different. These clownfish, if you like, are born with a special mucus coating, which is 3 to 4 times thicker than normal fish. And it's a combination of mucus from the fish itself and mucus from the anemone. And this is how they are able to withstand life within the anemone. Now with the shrimps, it's a little bit different. They have to start a process of acclimatization to the sting. And we are being photobombed by a damselfish here. It is telling us to go away as usual. Damselfish are notorious for being incredibly territorial and incredibly confident. They do not seem to be scared of us, despite the dramatic size difference. So Rianne's getting us a little bit closer into the... Oh, we are on macro level today. Would you look at that? A little hermit crab. That is a great visual. We have a hermit crab here, and we can see it's bright red with its little eyes sticking out, and it's living inside a shell. Now, we sometimes show you conch shells. And we explain that that is actually the exoskeleton of the sea snail that's living inside the shell. Now with a hermit crab, this is completely different. They do not grow and produce their own shells. They actually just find them. So they will, when they're ready to molt and grow, they will sort of leave this home and they will go find another home. They will do this all throughout their life of changing the little mobile homes on their back. There's well over 1,000 species of hermit crab, so they're notoriously difficult to identify the individual species, but this is definitely a hermit crab. And I've lived on the tropical islands for almost 8 years now, and it's sad to say it's a very common sighting to see a hermit crab having found a plastic object in the ocean to use as its home. So I've seen hermit crabs living inside plastic bottle caps, cups, cans, any sort of object that can nestle inside and carry on its back as a home, which is really, really sad to see. So living inside a shell will obviously protect it. It's actually got a really long, soft body inside. So what we can see are the claws and the legs, but inside the body is very soft. So it must protect it. And that's why it does choose to live inside of shells. And it also provides a moist, safe environment for the gills of the animal. So it's a great technique. Just change your home every so often. When they get bored, they just go looking for new shells. And despite its name, hermit crab, they're not actually as solitary as you would think. They are often found in really large colonies of more than 100 animals. You can find a lot of hermit crabs together in one area. So hermit crabs live a longer time than you would think. It can push up to 20 years. And throughout their life, they have to molt a lot. So the young hermit crabs will obviously molt more often than the adults, every few months or so, constantly changing their shell when they do so. And as it becomes an adult, they will molt a lot less. Now, molting just means like a dog molts and sheds its hair. It just means getting rid of the exoskeleton in order to pump up their body with water to get bigger, which means they will need a bigger shell to live in. So adults will molt about once every 18 months approximately. So really fascinating animals. And if we're just able to get a quick air check from Pat just to make sure he's safe and happy. So that is Pat telling us he's on 70 bar. Now we do end the dives at 50 bar. So he's got about 20 bar left with us. So we are nearing the end of the dive. So let's see what other amazing critters Rianne and Pat can find for us. Now we do apologize again about the audio issues. But at least I am still here to share some knowledge with you. Pat will be bored of hearing my voice. So Craig is asking, how do the hermit crabs locate to find a new home? Well, they will know when it is time that they actually need to molt. And they will know that it's time to find a new shell. So they actively seek out the new shells in the environment around. So they will probably, it's been cited that hermit crabs actually try out and test many, many shells. So it's worth noting that because hermit crabs recycle the shells, if you like, they pick up and find different shells that they can use as their home. This is why it is really important to leave the shells in the ecosystem. So even if we find shells that don't have any animals inside it, they're needed in the reef ecosystem and the beach ecosystem for a purpose. Now, when I was a young girl, I was obsessed with collecting shells. All I ever did was collect shells from the beaches. But now I know that this probably wasn't the best thing to do. It's important to leave the shells on the beaches and on the reefs because they will become inhabited by different animals. And even if they're not, even if a hermit crab doesn't pick up the shell, it will be broken down and ground down, and it will eventually produce and become sand. It's just really important to leave them in there, no matter how beautiful they are. So we do have some time for any last minute questions before Pat does round up the dive. So please do send them in if you have any. So Kathy was asking, are they more vulnerable to predators while they're molten? So back on this hermit crab, yes, absolutely. They're completely and utterly vulnerable because of that soft body. So hermit crabs are a food source for a huge range of predators, which are just waiting for the crab to leave that shell and be completely exposed and vulnerable. And I think we have a white spotted filefish up ahead. One of our favorites. It's disappeared, but I'm sure we're going to get another sight on it soon. There we go. Look at the teeth. So this is a filefish, file with an F. We do also have tilefish with a T, but this is a filefish. Oh, we have two. And one of them has just showed you exactly why it's called the white spotted filefish. And we have a perfect view of it putting up its spine. That rarely happens. How exciting. So that filefish just erected its spine that sits on the top of its forehead. Now it does this with a sort of two spine mechanism. So it will erect the large spine that we just saw. And then there's a very, very small, minuscule spine behind that that locks it in place. And the fish just needs to sort of use the spine to lock it and then depress it to unlock it. Now we say they're able to turn on and turn off the white spots. So they're not actually changing color, they're just lightening these areas of their skin, which brings out the white spots. And it will be some form of communication. So it will be either showing the other filefish there about food, or maybe it's saying, beware, there's predators in the water. There will be a significance of the white spots. And it's taken a huge munch out of the sponge there. And we saw the strong teeth and strong jaws. So they're very similar to triggerfish and very closely related to the triggerfish. And both of these families have strong teeth and strong jaws. And Hank, I'm glad you like my accent because I'm the only one talking for the remainder of the dive. So with this filefish, you can see they're not really reliant on their tail fin, which can also be called the caudal fin. They really use that top dorsal fin and bottom anal fin in an undulating manner to swim. They're really not using the power of the tail fin at all. The tail fin is used more as a rudder, so it kind of gives direction and stabilizes the fish. It's not really used to power or for swimming. And they're often found in pairs as well. We regularly find two filefish together of this species. Now, filefish get their name from the fact that they have really small scales, and each little scale has a very small spine on it. We probably wouldn't be able to see it with our naked eye, but their skin is often dried out in the sun by fishermen back in the day and used almost like sandpaper, especially to polish up the boats. Obviously, this is not such a common practice anymore, as sandpaper is fairly widespread, but that is where the name originally comes from. No, so we're just out of focus, but I believe Pat is going to tell us a message soon. There we go. That symbol he's doing with his hand and his fist, he's saying that he's out of air. And now I believe he's saying thank you and goodbye. So thank you, Pat. That was an awesome dive. I'll see you soon on the surface. And thank you, diveLIVE family, for your continued support. We will be back underwater at 11 a.m. Canadian time. See you then.